Broncos country. Is Blake Watson a lock to make this roster as a UDFA? I think if you look into the details, it's looking pretty likely. What impact does this make on the rest of the room? We'll get into that as well. Y'all be sure. Hit that like. Let me know your thoughts on Blake Watson in the running back room in the comments. And of course, subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000. Now let's go ahead and get into it, okay? We drafted Audric Estime in the 5th round. And from what I understand about how the rookie scale contracts go with the NFL draft, the only guaranteed money for day 3 picks is the signing bonus, or maybe that's rounds just 5 through 7. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong on that, but typically that's how it goes. Usually guys in the 5th round are making around that $250,000 or so guaranteed on their contract. And you want to know something interesting? Blake Watson was given $255,000 guaranteed on his first contract. This will be a 2-year deal, I believe, or maybe it's a 3. I'll look into that later, but $255,000 guaranteed at signing. You want to know how much Jaleel McGlaughlin got for his undrafted contract? $55,000 guaranteed. So the fact that we're giving this guy $200,000 more guaranteed than Jaleel McGlaughlin, I think goes to show you how incredibly high the Broncos are on Blake Watson coming out of Memphis. And former receiver as well, has fantastic hands. Let's go and get into the details a little bit. And I'm going to be comparing him to Jaleel a little bit, just so you guys know kind of how he stacks up and maybe why we're giving him so much more that money. But here's his relative athletic score right here. Let me go ahead and move me down a little bit. Well, actually, you can't see what I'm trying to say on the side, can you? But hey, yeah, you can see relative athletic score, or yes, 8.91. Look at his 40-yard dash, okay? 4.4 even. 10-yard split was 1.57. The vertical and the broad is what's crazy for somebody that's 5'9", 200 pounds. 11.03 in the broad. The vertical jump, 41.5. Just insane stuff. Decent agility, composite score with the 3-cone in the shuttle. Let's go ahead and compare this to Jaleel McGlaughlin, though. This is kind of interesting. You can see here, wasn't a great tester. 3.9. I was surprised to see this because I feel like Jaleel's a better athlete than what this shows on this. But 4.44 speed, slightly slower 10-yard split. But once Jaleel's in open space, I mean, he's a fantastic athlete. A little bit smaller, maybe not as strong in some of these categories as we saw with Blake Watson. Again, just to go back to it, Blake Watson tested out as a very good athlete. 8.91 out of 10 for this. And a lot of people are looking at him as a day 3 pick, of course, when undrafted. When we get into the work that he did, this is pretty interesting because first, let's look at his receiving. Guys, again, Memphis has a great track record, especially as of late. Tony Pollard, Antonio Gibson, Kenneth Gainwell. These are all guys that have come from Memphis that I believe Tony Pollard as well was a converted wide receiver. Guys that are able to rush. They have incredible burst, as the athletic score shows. And yeah, you can have him rush as well as receive. Very good in the receiving game. And so you can see here, I mean, 53 receptions at the college level at Memphis G5, 9.1 yards per reception. That is fantastic stuff. Has a little bit to grow in the pass blocking, okay? Sometimes that happens, especially with some of these smaller backs, not just rookies. But he'll be able to grow there. But you can see, I mean, the receiving upside. And then look at this. This is why I love some of the stuff with PFF. You could, oh no, that was on the rushing. We'll get to the rushing. Let's go ahead and get to that. I'll show you his breakaway plays. I mean, this is fantastic stuff. 15 plays of 533 535 yards. That's fantastic stuff. Responsible for 55 first downs, but general stats, almost 1,200 yards on the ground, 14 touchdowns, only 2 fumbles. Love that. An average 6 yards a carry over at Memphis. That's great. And of course, got fantastic grades running the ball. If you want to compare this to Jaleel McGlaughlin a little bit when he was coming out, Jaleel was actually a little bit more productive. He was also playing a level down at the FCS level at Youngstown State compared to Memphis, which is group of 5 in the AAC. But you can see, I mean, 19 receptions, 300 yards. We've seen what he can do with the ball in his hands in Denver this past year. A good receiver, but I think that Blake Watson suggests that he could be an even better receiver just based on his amount of college production in the receiving game. And then when we get to the rushing, Jaleel was fantastic. I mean, responsible for almost 1,600 yards on the ground, 6.9 yards per attempt, 13 touchdowns. This is great stuff when you look at his breakaway plays, 21 breakaway plays, responsible for 73 first downs. I mean, this is great stuff. And so you can see, again, when you're looking at the athletic profile, if you want to compare him with Jaleel McGlaughlin, I can see why people are saying, hey, this guy, Blake Watson, might overtake somebody like Jaleel McGlaughlin on the depth chart in that passing duty role. Again, they're both 5'9", but Blake Watson a little bit bigger and probably a little bit better of a receiver. That, at least that's what the data and college production is suggesting. He also has bigger hands by like a quarter of an inch than Jaleel McGlaughlin, which is interesting. But, guys, I'm not trying to say that Blake Watson is going to come here and take Jaleel McGlaughlin out of a roster spot. I don't think so. I think I would like to see a 5-back group that's all in the 53. So that would include Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, Jaleel McGlaughlin, Audric Estime, and then Blake Watson. Let's have 5. Now, that might seem a little bit excessive. I don't think so with these new kick return rules. If Jaleel McGlaughlin has been able to grow in his pass blocking, I would like to keep him on the roster as well. And even if he loses some of those snaps, spelling some of the running backs ahead of him, I think he adds tremendous value with the new kickoffs as well, because you'll need 2 returners back there. I'd rather not have Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin back there. I'd rather keep them for being on the field, because we don't know what's going to happen with Tim Patrick. And as much as I love Brandon Johnson, I don't really want to have him on the field unless it's absolutely necessary, okay? So y'all let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about Blake Watson? Do you think that he actually might take somebody's job like Samaje Perine or Jaleel McGlaughlin or Javonte Williams? Y'all let me know. But I think he's a lock to make this roster. I'll get into some of the film on him as we get into the summer. Of course, a lot more content's coming. Y'all let me know your thoughts. Smash that subscribe and like on the way out. And as always, let's ride. Go Broncos.